From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
What's the secret to making great soil? It may be thanks to the work of these slimy creatures. We'll take you to a worm farm. Surge at the border.
Let me be clear. The lifting of the Title 42 public health order does not mean our border is open.
A look at the current situation as Title 42 expires, and a big blow to the pork industry.
So if you're going to look at what the market impacts are here, you got to look at the production number.
What a major decision from the highest court in the land could mean for pork production across the country and all livestock producers right now on AgDay. Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. A major court decision for the pork industry that could have ramifications across the country. The Supreme Court upholding California's so-called Proposition 12, a decision that could force the entire industry to make changes in order to keep selling pork products in the country's most populous state. AgDay's Michelle Rook joins us with the latest on this developing story. Michelle, this law has been hotly debated since California voters decided on it back in 2018.
That's right, Clinton. Pork producers have fought against Proposition 12 since the very beginning because they believe it is a violation of the Interstate Commerce Clause. In addition, it sets a dangerous precedent for the entire livestock industry, and more specifically, it will have a negative impact on the hog market. Prop 12 will force pork producers that want to sell into the California market to comply with their strict production standards, which require more square footage and ban the use of gestation crates. One noted economist says he looked at how that will lower the productivity in the operations that produce for that market.
And tried to take a look at building costs and a reduction in breeding and farrowing rates because of breeding crates and all those kinds of things. And I came up that it was going to cost anywhere from $8 to $12 a head, okay, to produce the pigs for them.
And he says California is a significant market for pork as they must import nearly all of their product.
California is about 14% of our consumption, about 10% of our production. So if you're going to look at what the market impacts are here, you got to look at the production number.
He estimates that could have from a 10 to 12% negative effect on the entire wholesale pork market. This ruling could also open the door for production restrictions from other states and branch out to other species. Plus, it will drive up the price of pork for consumers in California. I'm Michelle Rook reporting for AgDay.
All right, thanks, Michelle. Another developing story we're following along the Mexico border. After Title 42 expired, the policy put in place back in 2020 to curb the spread of COVID-19 gave the U.S. government the power to swiftly expel migrants at the southern border. For days now, as we've been telling you, the number of migrants waiting to cross has been surging, challenging a humanitarian crisis that is already unfolding there. The government estimating there are more than 150,000 migrants waiting in shelters and on the streets in Mexican states that border the U.S. While thousands have crossed, many more have been apprehended. In the meantime, federal officials say they're trying to discourage migrants from crossing.
Let me be clear. The lifting of the Title 42 public health order does not mean our border is open. In fact, it is the contrary.
A U.S. official says Border Patrol agents were told earlier this week to begin releasing some migrants with instructions to appear at an immigration office in the United States within 60 days. While Washington debates what to do about the situation at the border, ag state leaders are also updating the president on the Farm Bill. President Biden inviting a bipartisan group of lawmakers to the White House yesterday afternoon to discuss that bill. Those invited include Republican Representative G.T. Thompson of Pennsylvania and Senator John Bozeman of Arkansas, along with Democrat Senator Debbie Stabenow of Michigan and Representative David Scott of Georgia. USDA Secretary Tom Vilsack also taking part. Now, Senator Stabenow labeling the session as a chance to, quote, have a broader discussion about the Farm Bill and all the implications for it. Representative Thompson signaled he wanted to hear a, quote, commitment from everyone, including the president, that we will get this done and done in the manner I've been speaking about. Bipartisan, bicameral, on time, and highly effective, end quote. Strong winds kicked up a dust storm earlier this week in Kansas. Kansas Highway Patrol Trooper Todd Heilman tweeting this video along I-70 in western Kansas, just outside of Hays. Now you can see how quickly it cut into visibility. The National Weather Service in Topeka calling for large hail and winds up to 80 miles an hour at the time this storm hit. The same system threatening to bring flash flooding to the Central Plains. Meteorologist Andrew Whitmire has the very latest.
Yeah, let's zoom on out and take a look at the flooding potential here as we close out this work and school week for Friday. And we're really watching two areas. One is the western half of the Dakotas and the other across the far southern plains down into the western and southern parts there of Texas or around San Antonio, further off to the south as well. We're going to be watching for heavy pockets of rain. And as we go forward into this weekend, that's where that disturbance is really going to stay parked. And that's where we're going to have to watch out for some heavy pockets of rain where some locations could be picking up over 2 to 4 inches of water by the time this is all set and done. And notice how we close out the weekend for Sunday. And that's where the bulk of the moisture just kind of stays parked across the area. Meanwhile, where we're missing it, as we're an updated drought monitor still continues to show an exceptional drought for the heart of the Plain States. And check out this video from Nebraska. Getting some rain earlier this week. Bradley of Upland and the south central part of the state sharing this video. That area of the state has been dealing with severe drought. He said at the time the rain was coming down in sheets with high winds putting Plant 23 on hold. All of your AgDay forecast in just a few.
All of that moisture and snow melt is helping a key Colorado River reservoir rise by more than a foot a day. It's reported a large snowpack is melting into Lake Powell in Utah and Arizona. It comes weeks after its surface sank to an all-time low. The reservoir is expected to deepen by 70 feet by the fall, which means some relief from a historic drought in the Southwest. Markets were mixed ahead of today's supply-demand report from USDA. We'll get a preview coming up next. And later, healthy soils usually have plenty of worms. We'll visit a farm in Georgia that's just worms in the country. Bayer reports it's experiencing a slow start to the year as leaders expected. The company posting first quarter earnings before interest, taxes, and depreciation declining almost 15% to $4.92 billion. Now it says crop science sales for the quarter overall, excluding glyphosate, were up about 8%, and it anticipates full year earnings would be near the lower end of its targeted range due to reduced market price expectations for glyphosate. Corn made gains midweek, only to give them back on Thursday. Michelle Rook is back with more on what traders will be watching today ahead of that supply-demand report in Markets Now.
Well, a mixed day in grains on Thursday. Joining us with analysis is Rich Nelson with Allendale. And corn and wheat slid as funds came in to sell. So was that just the rain makes grain mentality, or these really poor exports that we had on Thursday?
You know, I do think it's a series of all these stories here. A simple fact is, like you mentioned here, rain hitting some of the drier areas we've seen here for the Western Corn Belt and Plains. So that's a big issue. Also, these export sales, though, still quite poor. Corn sales down 52% versus the 5-year average. Soybeans, a 10-year low for this specific week. And wheat shipments also a little concerning as well. So I do think USDA has some work to do in lowering export sales estimates on tomorrow's report.
Yeah, plus we have the WASDE report coming up here on Friday. And of course, there's some pretty bearish expectations on corn there, isn't there?
There certainly are. So our discussions is not just about this return, quote unquote, to trend yield for what USDA will show a new crop. The trade is estimating, as far as the corn side, just a little over a 20 million bushel increase for old crop corn sales. I think the soybeans is probably where the trade is a little light right now. They're only expecting about a 2 million acre increase for these stock numbers for soybeans. That might be a little low considering these export sales discussions.
Yeah, but soybeans did recover on the day on Thursday. Was that because the meal market recovered? Was that tied in with the Argentina production number going down to 21.5 million metric tons, or what?
You know, I think those are two very strong factors, and I would certainly view those as a strong issue. Another issue is also our kind of change in this weather discussion as we go into the second half of May. So I do think our change in returning back to drier than normal conditions here in the 2-week update I think that's also a discussion for us right now. Perhaps negative news this week, including rain and the USDA report. But keep in mind, the trade is still discussing this idea of hammering out some type of spring low in the coming days, and certainly wants to have a discussion about maybe some risk on discussions for summer weather here.
And just a quick comment about the hog market lower. Was it any reaction to Prop 12?
Yeah, I do think it is for the very short term, but let's be honest, guys, we're trading these cash hogs already 26% below last year. So frankly, we've already priced this in for the most part. Today's low bounce was just a one-day psychological issue. I'm not sure if we're having a major low here, but keep in mind, this market has already hammered out most of this bearish news here.
All right, thanks so much, Rich Nelson with Alan Dale. More AgDay coming up.
To talk to Rich Nelson one-on-one, call 800-262-7538. Your next piece of equipment is on MachineryPete.com. Search equipment from dealerships across the country to find what you're looking for. Only on MachineryPete.com.
Drought monitor, which was just released. Let's go ahead and dive on into the drought outlook here. And again, the heart of the Plain States, we're still not seeing much relief at all. And I don't expect much in the way for this weekend. Outside of maybe a stray shower or two, that's going to be about it for parts of Nebraska down on into Kansas. I think the bulk of the rain across the Plain States this weekend is going to stay down across Texas and across the western half of the Dakotas. We're also watching Florida as well, especially the central part here of Florida, where we're starting to see that extreme drought starting to expand here across the Sunshine State. Looking at a precipitation estimate here as we go throughout this weekend. And again, notice where we're missing the bulk of the rain across the heartland of the country. Meanwhile, we're again seeing those moisture chances really ramping up here across the far southern and far northern plains. Check out Texas, especially the far south and east part of the state. It could be looking at over 4 to 5 inches, if not a little bit higher than that, of moisture as well. And then as we go up across the northern prairie, we're getting some of those yellows, oranges, and reds, an indication of 2 to 4 inches of water that'll be scattered from in and out shower and thunderstorm chances. Walking through this on the future radar, as we'll have a few disturbances moving through the heart of the country. Notice again how the rain is separated into 2 parts, the northern half and the southern half. Let's go on to watch for scattered showers and thunderstorms, and we'll also see a few scattered showers and thunderstorms trying to build on through parts of the Great Lakes states here as we head on into this upcoming Mother's Day weekend. Let's check out our temperatures for this afternoon. Check out Brownsville, Texas, 101 degrees, 92 in San Antonio. Yeah, we're going to be kicking up the heat across the Plain States, 80 up into Cincinnati. And then notice up across even the west coast there, 89 in Portland, 81 into Seattle. That's a look around the country. Now let's take a look here at AgDay Select Cities. Brownsville, Texas, partly cloudy and hot, high temperature 101 degrees and an overnight low of 77. Rochester, Indiana, scattered showers and thunder showers, high 74 degrees, and going over into Montana, high temperature near 70.
Organic sales reach another milestone. So what's next for the industry? We'll have details coming up next. And later, forget the fish, we'll visit the Georgia farm growing the worms in the country. And May is Beef Month, and what better way to celebrate livestock producers than to hold a sweepstakes? Zoetis and Farm Journal want to recognize you and the big impact you have on feeding our communities. The Zoetis Freedom Recognition Sweepstakes by Farm Journal runs through Saturday, May 27th. You can register to win a special edition golf bag or the grand prize, an amazing American flag wall display that we will be giving away on air. Just scan the QR code on your screen right now and you'll be taken to the sweepstakes entry form to enter for your chance to win. The EPA is taking on a new effort to cut fossil fuel emissions. The agency proposing new rules it says would drastically reduce greenhouse gases from coal and gas-fired power plants Under the plan, existing and new power plants that run on coal and natural gas would need to be outfitted with carbon capture technology. They would also have the option to add clean hydrogen fuel to reduce their emissions. Now, it's up to the individual utilities to choose how to meet these new standards. The EPA estimating these rules would cut about 617 million metric tons of carbon pollution by the year 2042. The changes are expected to raise energy costs for consumers, but the Biden administration argues it would only be a marginal increase. Organic food sales in the U.S. have hit more than $67 billion. The Organic Trade Association saying that's another high-level mark for the sector. The association saying that's despite inflation, supply chain issues, and global political events. It also saw a 4% growth in sales value, nearly twice the pace of growth in 2021. Now, Purdue University conducting a survey about organics in its monthly Consumer Food Insights. It found the most commonly purchased organic food items were vegetables and organic fruits, but only 30% say they often or always bought organic. People are paying less for eggs these days. The latest weekly egg report from USDA showing a sharp drop in the wholesale prices retailers are paying for eggs. Now, they fell to roughly 78 cents per dozen in the first week of May. That's down from a peak of about $5.30 at the end of last year. Now, the Consumer Price Index showed that for consumers, egg prices were down 0.3% in April compared to March, though they were still up 21% from last year. Now, farmers know a farm with lots of worms is a good thing. Up next, a farm with just worms is altogether different. We'll get a tour in Georgia next.
In the Country on Ag Day is brought to you by Pivot Bio. What if you had the nitrogen you need already on seed? Pivot Bio is the first company to apply nitrogen on seed. The nitrogen you need, now on seed, from Pivot Bio. Learn more at pivotbio.com.
Farmers know worms can help create nutrient-rich soil, but how about a farm just for growing worms? Jennifer Parson of Georgia Farm Monitor takes us to one.
Welcome to Piney Woods Farm. My name is Jessica and I'm the executive director here. We're going to talk about worms today and our worm reactor and all of our composting. So I hope that you enjoy your time here at the farm. Come on in. This is our continuous flow worm bin. It is about 5 feet by 10 feet large, and we will have thousands upon thousands of worms here. Yeah, if they're shiny, they're healthy. In here we have red wiggler worms. They're some of the best worms to create compost. We make sure that they stay moisturized, but not swampy wet. They like just the right temperature, just like we do. So this is our temperature gauge. We've learned in the wintertime when we have to wet it, we have to warm up our water. In the summertime, it's well water, so it's really cool.
If the water is too cool in the winter, the worms may not survive it.
But in the summertime, it gets super hot down here. So we will take all the hay off, we'll take the blankets off, we make sure we keep some really nice cool water to dampen them, and if it even gets really, really hot here in the south as it does in Georgia, we can take these boards off of the side of the barn so that more air can circulate through and keep it cooler. Look at him like looking at you. He's literally looking at you.
These busy worms can create about 200 to 300 pounds of vermicast a week. They use the vermicast from the worms along with these mushrooms that grow right here on the farm.
And that fungi.
Leaves, stems, and droppings from these fluffy friends to create nutrient-rich compost for their crops.
These are our bubblers and brewers, and this is how we get our worm vermicompost and our compost out to the field. We will take the compost from the worm reactor and we'll take our compost from Johnson Sioux or our static and thermophilic piles and we'll put them in these bags. We'll put about 15 to 30% of the compost in there, and then this big piece of equipment gets tied on just like this around the bag, and it goes into this huge bubbler that has big bubbles blowing up from the bottom so that it stays oxygenated, because you're growing microorganisms and you want to keep them alive and they have to have oxygen. Extracts, we're actually blowing off microorganisms into the water, and then we'll put them out into the fields on these big tanks that we spray on the field. Or we will grow pea bubblers. And so what that is you're adding a little bit of molasses and some other things, And the microorganisms are actually growing other microorganisms. They start breeding, and when they do that, they create this sticky stuff. So you can spray it on the leaves and it actually sticks to it. And that can actually help us with pest prevention and disease. It'll create a barrier on the leaves to keep them healthier.
These composting methods help Piney Woods Farm grow about 10,000 pounds of food each year that they donate to local charities. In LaGrange, I'm Jennifer Parson reporting for the Farm Monitor.
Our thanks to the Georgia Farm Monitor for sharing that story with us. And that's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clint Griffiths. Have a great day.
Closed captioning on AgDay is brought to you by BASF, helping you do the biggest job on earth.